Oh, no. Just kidding. To be an artist. Seriously, I don't actually consider myself an artist. I consider myself a designer, mostly. Yeah. I usually find things. I'm looking for things all the time, so I gather things together, and then when I'm ready, I sit with them and decide what I'm going to use. The colors usually find their way to me, or I might have a palette, usually not, but I like to see what happens in the moment. I guess there's always a significance, whether you want to create something that is bright and joyful, it's connected somehow. Sometimes it's like blood. Yeah.
Okay.
That was I felt like that was a combination of where I come from and where I am, because I grew up on a reservation. The forest was there, the wood was there, all of the artists were using cedar to design with. And I felt the metal really brought something bright to the wood, that the two of them together would represent myself, and where I am, but also brings in that sort of richness of the wood as well. Well, I started in jewelry, so I started making pieces with silver and gold, and then I brought in the steel. And the steel you really don't get a chance to, it's not really hands-on. And then I started using wood even more with tools. And the feeling of when you watch a piece of wood come to life, the grains and all those things in different ways, I can see how the wood brings the steel to life, brings the metal to life. So it's really a beautiful process. No, I like it all. I think that, there are so many beautiful materials in the world, and I'd like to incorporate more glass maybe, and some porcelain, that fine, beautiful porcelain.
Yes.
Yeah. It sure does. Working with the wood and the abalone, we see the abalone in our lives, in our daily lives, and the wood. The tree, the cedar tree, is known as the tree of life. It's what we survive with. And so it really is, I would say it's part of the earth, the ground that we walk on. Yeah, it's really very special.
And the abalone shell?
Well, the abalone shell was almost a form of payment. It was one of our most treasured items that we had. So when you see it, you know that something really special is happening. Yeah, I mean, when you see the abalone shell, you can see water, you can see the sky. It's all part of the environment. I really love the organic shapes. I would love to create a piece that people just want to touch. That the sense that they get from seeing it makes them want to feel it. So there's a real tactile emotion involved with the sight of the piece. So I'm working towards that, to that real essence of what, for example, the ovoid. There's an essence there, there's a tension in the shape itself. And if you can create something that exemplifies that tension and that beauty, and that's what I really love to ultimately do. Well, I grew up with the potlatch. I grew up with many artists in the family who are traditional artists. I don't think that my place was in the tradition of making masks that would be used in the potlatch. My sense for myself is that I would like to create pieces that allow people to see the potlatch, but know that we as a people have evolved and that we belong and are in different communities, and that community represents and reflects where I am in this world. Sometimes I'm in downtown New York, so I want what happens in the potlatch to reflect my life in a more contemporary world as well. Sure, yeah, for sure. Many of the artists, the traditional mask makers, are male. I'm not sure it had that much of an influence. I mostly am the kind of person that just goes out and explores things, and in my exploration it brings me to different mediums, different aesthetics. My love of Danish furniture, or Russian abstract paintings. Both. They have to. I mean, you can work and work and work, and you have this design and the material, and in the end, nothing works. So it has to come together. We'll see.
Okay.
My vision is to show a kind of inherent lightness that comes if you're at a pot. I think when people imagine a potlatch, they imagine this really serious, and it can be. The protocol can be very serious, but there's a lot of laughter as well, and you need to have both. And we need laughter in our lives, and I think. I don't know, I want people to smile too, it's like my cousin Richard Hunt, he does these pieces and they're very traditional, but he always hides something in there that for somebody to see. And I would like to see a kind of joy come out of these pieces, and that's what the resilience is, your strength comes from joy. I think the concept or the idea that when people are looking at traditional masks in galleries, when you look at them when they're in stasis, when they're not moving, they don't have a lot of, they're kind of serious. You have to imagine what they're meant to do. So I wanted to explicitly show that. And I love the idea that, especially in cedar, there are a lot of cracks in the wood. And you can either, get rid of it, or you can make it a part of what it is that you see. So that's where that one came from.
The other one is hanging around. The whale tail.
It's the whale's tail. It's
Yeah.
hanging around. I love the idea of just hanging around or hanging out. The idea that, especially, a whale's tail. It's two things. It's the tail of the whale, but it's also the tail of the story. And when we're hanging around, we're just like sharing stories.
Oh, I like that. When things fall apart.
That is a title from Pema Children, who's one of my teachers, and the idea of wabi-sabi, the idea that things, I may misrepresent it, but in this piece, like with the cracks, a crack came. And do I discard the piece or do I make something from it? So that the whole thing could have fallen apart, and it did. So when things fall apart and they come back together, this is what they are. They come back together as a whole, but it's a different kind of whole. It's not what you had imagined when you started out, but it's what you're given.
Does that tie into the sustainability of certain things that, things really shouldn't be discarded?
Yeah, absolutely. So some things when you're working on them, they don't work. Step aside, whatever. But with this one, it felt like it could get somewhere. Well, the design is from a Tlingit blanket,
Yes.
which is brought to our family from my great-great-grandmother, Anislaga, from Alaska. And it actually represents the space between myself and Anislaga. So what she brought us and what I'm bringing to it is this. And that's the space between us.
Oh.
I think because my aesthetic is to bring things to their sort of essence, the essence of the negative and the positive, to bring something to a very simple point like that. Point where you can see what it is, but maybe it's fresh, maybe it's new, and it doesn't look like anything else that you've seen, hopefully.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's really why, and then I've also incorporated the wood and the abalone. So there's kind of a wink quality to it. It's not, you kind of recognize what it is, but it isn't what you see.
Yes.
Yes, quite intentional. It's like, as a child, I watched my Uncle Henry draw, and I don't remember ever seeing anything as beautiful as watching him use a pencil and do these drawings, which are very precise.
Yes.
And I loved those, but when they flew out of me, they flew somewhere else, and this is where we ended up. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like I'm lucky in a way, because I'm not judged by my community for the kind of work that I produce. I think there's an excitement about it too, because I do use so many different mediums, and I like utilitarian things a lot, so I design plates and other things. So it's, I think there's it makes a big difference for me that my community accepts the kind of work that I do.
Yeah.
Well, I think the challenge is to try to have a clear message about my intentions. And my intention is always to show me, and not necessarily me as I represent my people, but me as a person within that group. So, and I'm not fond of the word authentic, but there is an authenticity that's involved in that. To never be swayed by one thing because I think it's groovy. I swayed because I think it's groovy, it's good. Probably, yeah. If I'm not really, there, if I'm not in the moment, then it can't be real. So if it comes out of whatever is happening in that moment, and that's why they're creations, that's why they're designed, then I think that's the truth. I will tell you, when I sit down with a piece of wood, sometimes I don't want to leave it. It's like 1:30 in the morning, and I'm like, please don't let me go. And there's another line in there. The wood is really beautiful when it comes alive. Yeah, I moved from my village to Vancouver, where I lived in the city for 50 years, and back to the village. It's fantastic. You can see the inspiration for the stories and the masks. I have these ravens that are just crazy around me, and now it just makes me feel like creating ravens. And then there are juvenile eagles, and there's just so much around, and it is really inspiring to be around, and just the air. Yeah, it does. And then I come back to Vancouver and I walk the streets and I'm like, what? It's so cool. I love it. I think it's getting closer to that essence. It's creating, to get to that point where I really just want something to be as simple as possible, but really visceral at the same time. I haven't created it yet, but it's all up here, and it's.
That's a true artist statement.
But it really is. Hopefully something that will make you smile. I think it's cool. I love it. There was I went to a retreat outside of San Diego, and before the retreat started, it was in the grass, just having some moments. And there was a woman beside me, and I saw her earring, and I asked her where she got it from, and she said it was made by this artist. Her name is Corrine Hunt. She had bought it in Alaska. And I went, oh my God, it was a piece that I had made, and this woman I think she was from Santa Fe, but she bought it in Alaska, and there we were outside of San Diego, and she was wearing it. So it was really fun. I think it's fun to see it, and people love to, say, oh, I've got this other piece and I don't have it on today. But it's exciting, and I really feel like people appreciate it, which is helpful.
That's wonderful.
Well, I hope that it fits, and I hope that it's friends with the other pieces that they have in their home. Who knows? Lots of, I'm given great projects. I'm just designing an exhibit that opens in New York next month, and there's always these amazing projects that come my way. I very much look forward to the future.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us, Corrine, and we're very honored to be speaking with you. Thank you.